I have one.
Okay.
All right. You guys are all back far enough that when we talk, we may undo these and then put them back on, just because I don't know if there's something wrong with me. I tend to like suck the whole thing into my mouth every time I talk.
Makes it hard for people to hear.
Yes. So my name is Corrie, and these are my friends, Jennifer and Michelle. And while Emily bragged on us quite lovely, and I'm grateful for that, and she made us sound like these great, and we do have 30 years of homeschooling among the three of us. I don't want that to feel like an overwhelming statement to any of you, because it's very doable, and every single one of us had a first year, and every single one of us was probably thinking the things that you're thinking right now. Oh my gosh, can I do this? Oh my gosh, is this even possible? And how do I even get started? So we're hopeful that today we can answer those questions for you a little bit. Like I said, my name is Corrie. I have 5 kids. They go from, I've got one in college, a 10th grader, a 7th grader, a 3rd grader, and a kindergartner. So we like to cover all of the age groups at our house. We thought we'd introduce ourselves and kind of tell you, one of our favorite things about homeschooling, and then maybe the least favorite thing, because like anything, there are hard days that, don't always go quite as planned or as smoothly as you hope they do. So my favorite thing about homeschooling is simply, honestly, the flexibility that it creates in our families. We have a kiddo that has to have some treatments in St. Louis, and when she comes home from those, she's down for a week. And I honestly don't know how we would maneuver that in a public school setting. On those weeks, she lays on the couch with her eyes closed, and we do spelling out loud, or I read to her, or whatever she's capable of. And if we need to take a day off, we take a day off, and we make that up. We do follow more of a year-round school schedule to accommodate those kinds of bumps in the road, so to speak, which I know a lot of people think, that sounds terrible, but we school a little, and then we take some time off, and then we school a little, and then we take some time off. And if we have something really fun planned, my kids will do school on a Saturday so that we can take a Monday off, because my husband doesn't get typical, weekend days off, and so if we want to go do something fun, it kind of needs to be on a weekday. So for us, the flexibility of it has been probably my favorite part. There's lots of favorite parts. I could talk about that for a really long time, but I swore I wasn't going to ramble.
That's an easy one to talk about.
Least favorite, and it's something we'll cover later, is everybody always asks you, how do your kids get socialized? So we'll talk about that at length a little bit later, but for right now, I'll just leave it at that and turn it over to Jen.
All right, let me get this off. Hi guys, I'm Jennifer Hall. I have 2 kids. One has been graduated for 2 years now. He's now going to the fire academy. And my daughter is going into her junior year this year. So
It's crazy that she's in junior
I
already.
know I've been schooling for 14 years total, so it's been a really long time. But it doesn't seem like a long time. I think, that's, I can't pick a favorite thing. It's hard because that is one thing. A favorite is just that time you spend with your kids. You just get this bonding that you wouldn't get any other way. You have your good days and your bad days, of course. That's always going to be a thing, and if you think that there will be no bad days, then that's not true. But my other favorite is see, I'm picking 2.
Just cheating on her.
My other favorite, though, is combing through all the curriculums that are out there and choosing the curriculum and getting them and going through them and planning for the year. That's probably my favorite. And my least favorite is grading the tests. That part's not fun, and I sit on my desk for a very long time before I get to them. Yeah, that's about my story, really.
My name's Michelle Price. I'm the newest homeschooler out of our group here. We're going into our 6th year with our kiddos this year. We've got 4. My oldest is 15 and starting her sophomore year, and then our youngest is 6. He's doing kind of a mix of kindergarten and 1st grade stuff this year. Our situation's a bit unique. I didn't ever dream of, my whole life's goal wasn't to be a homeschooler. But about 6 years ago, my husband took a job that required him to travel, and I was home alone. We were foster parents at the time, so I was doing court dates and travel sports and OT appointments and all these crazy things by myself while he was out of town for 2 weeks at a time. And so when he got back, I was like, I can't do this anymore. So we squeezed the budget down, and I decided to stay home. I had my kids enrolled in school. Our 2 oldest went K through 4 for my daughter, and then our son did kindergarten and 1st grade in District 108. And 2 days before school started, I'm like, I'm gonna try it. If everybody hates it, we can enroll them again next year. If we love it, we'll keep going. So thankfully, everybody loved it because I did. We do have one guy with some extra needs, so that's probably what differentiates me just a little bit. Our older 2 are fairly easy. Our 3rd in line, we juggle OT appointments, counseling, speech, physical therapy, along with his learning as well. And he's highly intelligent, but a very, very short attention span. So that's been a little bit of a learning experience for me and for him probably. My favorite thing is all the extra time with our kids. I know if, especially our 8-year-old, if he was enrolled in school, there's no way he'd be getting the same amount of therapy times that he's getting with our independent therapists right now. I love that, you know, before we were both working full-time, you rush to the babysitters to pick him up at 6 o'clock, and you make dinner and you do homework, and you get like 30 minutes of quality time with him before it was time to go to bed and start all over. And so that's my all-time favorite, is getting to spend more time with them. My least favorite, I am all about planning the first few weeks of the year, and I love it, and after that, I despise it. So we do a lot of just kind of go with the flow after the first few weeks. We're still meeting all of the standards, we're still getting everything covered, but we're not near as scheduled and organized as we are like the first 3 to 4 weeks of the year. I really let that drop. That's my weakness too. But everything still gets done, and they're all progressing beautifully. So my biggest worry when I started was, oh my gosh, I'm going to do something awful and I'm going to mess these poor, wonderful children up. And Corrie reassured me that that was not going to be the case. And thankfully she was right. They're doing wonderfully. So that's our little short story.
All right, and we understand that we are in very unique times, and so I'd like to do a quick poll sort of you guys to kind of see where you're at, so we know better how to sort of direct this today. So kind of a show of hands, and again, no judgment here.
No pressure.
No pressure. We're not going to force anybody into homeschooling today. You're not signing any papers. How many people are interested in maybe homeschooling for a year while all of this, you know,
Hopefully
COVID
dies down.
madness hopefully goes away, and then returning? Okay. And how many then, so basically everyone. But a few people are looking long-term.
She's got her hand raised.
You're looking long-term. Okay. Well, I think we will be able to do this in a way that will benefit everyone. How about, any preschoolers? Anybody have preschoolers? Okay, K through 6-ish, like LN, junior high?
Oh, that's a nice
High school? One high school.
One high school.
Special needs though, so I mean.
Okay.
Okay. And you were looking more long,
Yes.
at going back or long term?
Long term.
Okay, good. The high school has its own set of rules that's very different from the rest of it.
Every
And
other
so
part of the district.
that's something perhaps we'll discuss at the end, if that's okay with you, since there's just one of you. Okay. And then that way we can kind of gear this more towards what everybody seems to kind of want to learn about. So I wrote down, we've all gotten lots of questions right now, because again, these are just interesting times for everyone. And so I feel like we've all been asked a lot of questions, and a lot of them are very similar. So I'm going to address some of those right out of the gate, and then we will also answer questions that you might have as well. But this might cover a few. The biggest one I get is, tell me the curriculum to use. Tell me what to buy. I'll buy it today. What is it? And that's like a good news, bad news kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. It's not a one-size-fits-all answer. We gave you a sheet that looks like this, and it has lots of different kinds, and these are all kind of grouped by by what kind of learning style you might be interested in. Down at the bottom in the corner, we wrote Kathy Duffy Homeschool Reviews. So if you find a curriculum that you're interested in, if you go look it up on Kathy Duffy Homeschool Reviews, she reviews everything, and it's concise, and she's brutally honest, I feel like, and she'll list pros and she'll list cons, and she'll say this costs $1 million and it's worth it, or she'll say this is one of my favorites, and this is what we use. In my own house, we don't use the same curriculum across the board, or even I have one kid that uses this for language, or one kid that uses this for math. So that's kind of I guess that's the bad news, is that I can't just tell you, go do this and you'll be done. But it's also good news, because every kid learns so differently. And again, too many favorite things, but one of my favorite things has been really learning and understanding how my kids learn and what they thrive with and what their favorite subjects are, and how to kind of direct that a little bit for them, because really you just want them to learn. And if they like it, it's going to be much more enjoyable for everyone. Do you want to add to that? I'm sorry, I talk too much.
No, I'm fine.
Throw something at me.
The only thing I would add is just don't be afraid that if you decide on a curriculum and it doesn't work, don't be afraid to start with something new. Because I think that's what a lot of people do, is when they first start and they think, well, I already bought this, I have to stick to it. And then your kid is miserable. And you don't want to do that, because you don't want them to have a rough year because they had to be at home, or so don't be afraid to just throw it out and get something different and try something new. There are resale sites all over, and so you can usually sell anything that you buy, and there's
buy what you want at a good price.
Yeah, and you can get used things too, so that's a good, if you know where to go. I think obviously Amazon has a lot of used stuff, but there's Facebook pages, there's eBay. Yeah. So there's lots of options.
And I'm going to interrupt real fast, just while I'm thinking about it. We'll have you guys, if you want, we have a Tazewell County Homeschool page on Facebook, and if you would like to be added to that, we'll just have you write your name down on the sheet. And again, I know this can seem overwhelming at first, and so that's another great place to ask any questions that you have or can think of, or hey, I'm looking for this curriculum. Have you used it? Did your kids love it? Did they hate it? That kind of a thing, and just kind of get a feel for something a little bit more maybe before you buy it. So, sorry, Michelle.
You're good, you're perfect.
Curriculum? No,
I'm done.
you're good. I'm done.
Good.
I'm out. Cost, we get a lot of cost questions, and again, that's kind of up to you. That's you're gonna have to set your budget. You can homeschool for free. It's a little bit more work on your part. You're going to have to set up, your lesson plans, but you utilize your library, and there's tons. There's a whole free category on your sheet here, and those are online resources that you can go, and they will give you books to read and unit studies and that kind of stuff. And for those of you with preschoolers, it's a dangerous, dangerous place, but Pinterest. If you, and I would direct my rabbit hole just a little bit, because you get sucked right in.
Yeah.
And it can seem a little stressful. But if you have a kid that loves dinosaurs, just type in preschool dinosaur unit, and something will pop up. And a lot of times, I brought this as well, if you've not heard of the Oriental Trading Company, they are a great resource for less expensive school type items, and there's lots of hands-on type things. And a lot of those Pinterest unit studies for preschoolers will say, buy the sand art from Oriental Trading, or buy the big dot markers so that they can trace their letters in a fun way, or something like that. So I loved Pinterest for preschool, I won't lie. But again, it's dangerous. You have to. I'm kind of the opposite of Michelle. I'm a little type A, and I admit that about myself.
She likes
and
to
so
plan a bit more
I
than I
like
do.
my plans, and I like it all written out. Did you have a question?
Yeah, what makes you say it's dangerous?
it's dangerous because you get sucked in and you want to do it all.
Like, you only have so much time in that year.
Yes, like, you know, you're talking preschool.
You
That's
can't do school for, 13 hours a
you
day.
could.
right. Not dangerous in a bad way, dangerous in a, you get overwhelmed and, oh my gosh, we're gonna do a water unit, and then we're gonna do a bug unit, and then we're gonna do a dinosaur unit, and then we're gonna do a fish unit, and then we're gonna do just a butterfly unit, even though I could have covered that in the bug unit. So I get sucked in. That's why it's dangerous.
And the Yankee don't do anything.
Whatever they love, but that's fun. That's a way to find out things that your kid loves. Again, another favorite of mine. I had a reluctant reader. After kindergarten, she was not going to be a reader. That was not her thing, and I threw out the plan for the year, which was very hard for me, as I've just stated. And I said, as long as you're reading at grade level, we'll read whatever you want to read. And it was one of my all-time favorite years. She read about sea lions for the entire year. She, to this day, can tell you more about sea lions than I possibly could. And then we just ran with that. She wrote a book at the end of the year called Rosie the Brave Sea Lion. And we went to St. Louis, and she got to do a behind-the-scenes Meet the Sea Lion. And Rosie was an actual sea lion in St. Louis that started her love of sea lions. And so for that to come, this huge full circle, that was a really fun year for us. And she's 15 and she loves to read, and so that was a win. So that was, I'm not sure how we got there from cost.
That's okay. That's okay. Free. We're both free.
Free. There you go. That was a lot of free stuff, a lot of library books, and a lot of online, websites and zoo sites that will say, here's our sea lions, and here's how we feed them, and that kind of stuff. Yes.
Does the state of Illinois provide any financial assistance to buy these materials?
No.
We do not.
Not at all.
No, that'd be lovely.
Yeah. It's a wonderful idea, yes.
Yeah.
It would be sad if they did, but no, yeah.
And
Good
then,
question.
Yeah, and then we get to the socialization question. And a lot of that, we hear a lot of that. How do you socialize your kids if they don't go to school? And big shock to everyone sitting in this room right now, I was a chatty kid. And I can't tell you how many times my teacher said to me, we are not here to socialize.
We are.
And so I at the risk of dumping it right back in your lap, I feel like however your kid is socialized right now is how you can continue socializing them. If they play sports or take music lessons or play with the neighborhood kids or go to the park and meet a friend. My poor neighbors, if they come outside, my 5-year-old is like, hi! So I feel like that kind of falls more on us as parents, not necessarily on us as educators.
So that brings me, the reason I created the Tazewell County Homeschool group on Facebook was because years ago when I began homeschooling my son, he didn't have any friends. He went to kindergarten. We kept him back starting in first grade because he had some auditory processing things, difficulty with reading and spelling and stuff. So I kept him home so that I could work with him one-on-one instead of him being lost in a classroom. So doing that, he was away from friends all day. So I do understand the whole socializing, and it is hard. So I created the Homeschool County Homeschool group to start getting kids together in the area because I knew there were a lot of other homeschoolers. And we had this core group. We would do field trips. We would have field day. We would do play dates. Yeah. So there was always something going on. And now, these homeschool groups have gotten bigger and bigger as the years have gone, and there's still, you can find so many things for the kids to sign up for extra things to do. There's art classes, like I said, there's field trips, there's a lot.
Oh,
So,
yeah. And
I
ours-
don't know what that will look like this year as
I
far
know.
as what the
Yes.
gatherings will be allowed. So again, this is
Yes.
an
We don't-
interesting year
it
in
will
lots
be
of
different.
aspects. So
I know
That might be
Tiffany,
tricky.
my daughter, is in an art class. They will be doing an art class still. She's limiting the numbers. They will be social distance. They will wear masks, so they are still going to have their class. So, but that will all be dependent on who is running each activity,
Sure.
and, you know, we don't know how that's gonna go, but those kind of things though are on the parents. That is part of it, where we have to be actively involved, and we can't not sign up our kids for things, because that's part of our job as homeschooling the kids, so.
Well, in ours, our younger kids run around at our older kids' baseball games. There's always little brothers and sisters everywhere. They're playing with everybody. The zoo offers classes. The library, we've taken awesome classes here with Miss Sue before. We've done art classes. The big museum downtown Peoria has all kinds of fun things. They've got pottery and astrology type things. So our kiddos get to sit down and pick out a few things each year that they want to do, and we just make sure we get them signed up for it if they're going to do it. The times are usually during the day, so if you are working outside of the home during the day still, that might put a little kink in some of the plans, but definitely not all of them. And just goofy little things. When we go to the grocery store, my 6-year-old can interact with any adult there better than my older 2 ever could, because that's all he's known. He's always gone everywhere with me. He's always interacted with people of all ages. He will talk to a 90-year-old man for 4 hours, bless his heart. Or, I mean, he can play with kids his own age or younger. So it's pretty cool when they have been introduced to so many different things, seeing how they act when you get them out and about. And I mean, while that's not playing with your friends, it's still socializing, and it's still learning new things every time you do it.
Wildlife Prairie Park is another good
Well,
one
yes,
to add to
Wildlife
that
Prairie
list.
Park,
They've got
all
some
kinds of
great
things.
classes that they offer. And again, these are in typical years. I'm assuming probably those places are still
think the
wanting to be
museum
able to
still
do
is.
that,
It'll
and
just be-
it might just look a little different than
Yeah.
in a typical school year. All right, the next one is, do I need to transform my house and have a complete dedicated room to homeschooling and create a schoolroom? And the very easy answer to that
No
is
way.
absolutely not.
Don't do it.
We do school on the trampoline. Well, I had one today in a teepee. We do school outside. We do school on the front porch. We do school on the floor.
Sprawled
If
out
they are writing, I do have bigger kids, and so if they are writing something that is a final, the final draft of an essay or a paper or a book report or, the little kid's spelling test, something like that, then we sit at the table and we sit nicely and we write nicely. But if they're reading or drawing or whatever,
We're everywhere too.
we can do anything. And a lot of teachers went that route in the last couple of years, and they're kind of being forced to take that away right now, but with the flexible seating that you saw in classrooms. So that's almost, that was school approved as well, because they kind of tried to go that route, again, until this year. As far as, I brought this is my kindergartners. This is literally, each of my kids has one of these. These are just called Latchmates, I think. I got them at Michael's. And each kid has one, and it has this little tray, which is great, and we get whatever their supplies are. Hers is obviously very kindergarten-y. The older kids have compasses and protractors and calculators and all that good stuff. And this is really it. All of her school books are in here. A little Ranger Rick magazine if she has free time and wants to kill some time. And they just kind of pick this up and take it wherever they want to be for the day. They move around a lot. Sometimes, I won't lie, it makes my heart happy when they all end up at the kitchen table at the same time, and you're like,
together.
huh, but I also won't lie to you and say that happens every day, because it does not. So I don't want you to think you need to spend a small fortune and buy a desk and buy a bulletin board, but you don't. You really don't. It's very doable. You'll honestly probably spend less money than you would at buying school supplies, because a lot of it is stuff, I don't buy pens or pencils or, we buy notebook paper when we run out. It's things that you already have at home that you can use until it's gone. Yeah. I know you brought stuff too down there.
I just brought a few things. My one guy that learns a little bit differently, he is all about graphic novels. So, I think Timberdoodle's listed on this list of other sites to check out. they've got some awesome history books that are all written in graphic novel form. And then at the end of them, I love them. At the end of them, they've got different resources, different internet sites. It's got a bibliography if you want to check out the books that they got their information from. But I got history ones. We found chemistry ones. He's also an old school Looney Tunes fan. So we found Wile E. Coyote. Aren't those cute?
And it's science.
Yeah, and it's all
like
science
physics,
stuff.
isn't it? Fun.
And then it's so easy to go through too. Like we'll read a little bit and then you can hop online. You find YouTube videos that kind of go along with the subject that are geared towards kids. So we don't spend a whole ton on books, but I find the ones that I know they're really going to be interested in. And then I sit down with YouTube or Hulu or Netflix or whatever. I mean, YouTube's free, so that's my favorite. And then I just save little clips that we can incorporate into that as the week goes by. And then so we'll do our little thing, and like I said, they're 8 and 6, so cartoons always keep their interest fairly easily. And then we'll mix in a couple of the YouTube videos, and I mean, it's hilarious sometimes. You come to our house, the things that my children will spit back out at people, and I'm like, oh, we just did our chemistry lesson a little bit ago. But they remember it so much better when it's delivered to them in a form that they actually kind of enjoy. I think half the time they don't necessarily even know we're sitting down going over some serious school stuff. They're like, oh, comic books. Well, we'll sit down and read comic books with you, and they do. So.
And
That's
you
kind of our
mentioned, because
favorite
you
thing.
mentioned screens, I do want to touch on that because I know that can be a hot topic, a button that gets pushed. I am, again, not going to fib to you. I recognize my own strengths and weaknesses. I am not mathy, and we have always streamed math at my house, always. I mean, little, I can handle
My
little
second
kids,
grader, I got
but
this.
my oldest, who is now in college and a coder, he chose to take extra math classes. Had I
Who
not
does
birthed
that?
him, I would have questioned where he came from. So he would take 2 math classes, his regular math class and his elective, and I was like, yeah, buddy, you're on your own. Khan Academy, you gotta go see Dr. Khan and find out how to do calculus, because I'm out. So I would say, obviously you don't want to sit them down for 6 hours and walk away, but don't be afraid to utilize that maybe in places that you don't feel necessarily are your strengths. I have my sister's here, and she's mathy, and I'm always like, yes, I shall pawn my children off on you.
Field trip time.
And my husband thankfully likes it, but he works funny hours and doesn't have normal days off, and so, I don't feel like we can wait until it's convenient for him to sit down and help necessarily. And so again, that is something that once we hit high school, we're streaming math because it's not my thing. So please don't be afraid of that. It's my only point there.
There's other options.
Lots of
yes.
resources.
Yeah.
Tell me about that is not your strength, then how do you cope?
Well,
He has questions about something.
there's lots of online resources. Khan Academy is one that's on your list, and that's a free
Right here?
website. Yes.
It's on that
Yes,
list,
it's
yes.
is it under the free one? Or is it
Yes.
not? Yes, there it is.
Yes, it's under the free one.
That's a really great resource. You can
What
type
is it?
in under free.
It's in the red.
It's kind of
Middle
towards
towards
1,
the
2,
bottom.
3, 4 from the bottom.
Is Power People?
KHAN, content.
Oh, it's it.
It's in the box with the red.
It's right there.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, and they've got video lessons, so they'll sit down
Yes.
and they'll walk you through it step by step. My daughter's doing geometry this year, and I will be totally honest, I totally failed geometry in high school and had to retake it. I did well the second time around. The first time did not go so well. Thankfully, she picks up on things fairly easily, but there are still times where she's like, Mom, I've watched this 3 times. I don't know what the heck's going on. So I'm like, all right, give me 20 minutes. And so with a little bit of Google, there's also an app out there, don't tell your children, it's called Photo Math. And you
I
can
just
scan
heard
a
about
picture
that.
of your math problem, and it will do it step by step for you.
It shows
So-
you this how to do it.
It goes
how to
through,
break it
this
down.
is A, B, C, D, and it'll walk you through it. So, I mean, sometimes I can get an answer, she's like, but I don't know how you got there. I'm like, I just got there, I just knew how to do it, we just did it, this is how. But when it shows her something step by step, she's like, okay, that makes sense. So with a little Google, a little photo math help, we haven't run into anything yet that between her video lessons and those two resources we haven't been able to figure out together. And honestly, I'm doing better in high school math now than I did in high school.
I feel like we have a more of a
You're kind of
vested
learning
interest,
everything,
like we
right?
have to.
Oh, that's kind of cool to hear.
I can't figure out this math, Mom, and I try to help her, and she's like, that's not how to do it.
That's not how they told me to
We're
do
going to
it.
Khan Academy, and Khan Academy will say the exact same thing, and you'll be okay with it, and that worked.
Right.
She likes Khan Academy.
Yeah.
Good, I'm glad she likes it. That's good to hear.
Yeah, that was literally my answer. Go see Dr. Khan. Go see someone else. Oh my. All right, and then the big question is, can we do this for a year and send our kid back to school? And that is a resounding yes. Specifically, again, I'm going to focus on District 108. I talked to many teachers. I sat down with a couple of administrators, and the bottom line is, you know, your kids' teachers want them to thrive in whatever setting is the best or the safest, or sometimes it's even most convenient. If you know your kid has to be logged in between 8 and 3, and both parents work, or you know one parent works, and whatever your household situation is, homeschooling in the evening might be a better option for you than the typical 8 to 3. And so, across the board, every teacher I talked to was, you know, completely in understanding and agreed that this is not a typical year, and they just want your kids to succeed as well. So at every level, basically, you really need to focus on those meaty subjects: reading, writing, and math. To go back into a school, they will probably ask, you know, for your kid to read to them. They might have to take a little math test, and they might have to show that they know how to write a couple of sentences, or you know whatever, at whatever grade level. It might be a little bit different, obviously. So I'm going to go way out on a limb here now. If I were going to homeschool for 1 year to send my kid back, I would focus heavily on those 3 things and just really make sure that their reading and writing and math stayed at grade level or higher. Now, you can sneak in other subjects. If your child, you know, loves the Olympics, you can read about the Olympics. That's a fascinating history to go back in. We did a whole Olympic unit, and we made Olympic rings out of pool noodles, and we had backyard Olympics, and things like that can be very fun. And again, going back to my sea lion example, let them read what they love, as long as it's at that grade level. And if they're reading very easily at grade level, you know, this is a great opportunity to challenge them a little bit and maybe bump that up. And you have this opportunity to have this one-on-one interaction with your child/student, and you could really, you know, bolster where they're at. Or on the other side of that, if there's something they've really been struggling with, what great opportunity to sit down and maybe help them catch up in that area where, you know, in a school setting, teachers have 30 kids and they have to move on. And if you miss that one, you know, if you don't grasp that one math concept and then you move on and you're building on that, that's tough. And so to have the opportunity to maybe be able to go back and really focus on that concept and then grasp it completely and then move on, you know, they might even get an opportunity to catch up.
Well, and I remember how so horribly nervous I was the first year. I was convinced I was going to do something horribly wrong. We weren't, so I mean, if you're only planning on doing this for a year, I mean, it took me probably 3 years to really feel like I knew what I was doing. We were in a good routine, albeit it's not the same routine every day, but it's our routine. And everybody kind of knew what was expected of them. It took me several years to truly feel comfortable and not nervous and anxious about it all the time. So for 1 year, I totally agree with Corrie. Focus on the big things and don't stress yourself out about the other stuff. There's documentaries, there's field trips, there's museums, hopefully, there's online museum tours, there's libraries. I mean, you can find so many things to do to cover the histories and the sciences and things like that without
Busy work.
a ton of the busy work, exactly. So yeah, don't stress yourself out, focus on the big things, and your kids are gonna be awesome going back into next year.
And again, in these times, people have really kind of, I mean, museums and zoos and places like that have stepped up their game, and there's some amazing things that are being offered online for free right now.
That's
You
true.
can
Yeah.
you can see so many cool zoo experiences. My kids have loved the
Oh,
San
yeah.
Diego Zoo puts on a new animal every day, and you get to learn about that animal. And you know, it's 20 minutes. You sit down and you watch them, and they interact, and that's been really fun. And so it's been very interesting to see all of these new things get kind of put out into the world as people are trying to, you know, help people keep that sense of normalcy in their lives, the extras and the fun, I feel like.
Absolutely.
All right, another biggie that we get is the laws, Illinois state laws regarding homeschooling. And I'm going to turn that over to Jen because
She's our
I'm so
resident
lazy that when I
expert.
have a law question, I call Jen.
I do.
No pressure.
Well, the short of it is that Illinois doesn't really have much regulation on homeschool. We are considered a private school, so anything that
As
is.
homeschoolers.
As homeschoolers, sorry, I say we, you know.
You're one of us.
We, homeschoolers are considered a private school. So, like, there's HSLDA, I don't know if anyone has heard of them, I don't think I've.
Did we get those handouts, maybe?
I don't remember. But that is the homeschool legal defense. So with them, they will give suggestions for each state, and so they cover the entire United States. On their website, it's nice to go and look through. A lot of people will use it too if they're planning to move to a different state. They'll want to know what those laws will be, so you can go there as a resource. So with Illinois, though, it's very easy because you don't have to register with the state in Illinois. I have heard that some of the schools are asking kids or parents to do that if they're pulling their kid out of the school, but you do not have to do that. So I just want to let you all know that there is no law in Illinois telling you to register with the state. Now, you do a letter. I do, okay. Oh, yes, so if the kids are already registered with a school, though, you do have to notify the school and let them know that you're pulling the kid out, obviously, because you don't want to be truant. So there's a sample letter, I think you guys might have gotten.
I think that's the exact same one I copy and pasted.
Is it?
6 years ago.
Is it?
I
Yes.
just filled in our information.
So you just would type this up and send it to your school principal and let them know that your kid will not be attending for the year.
On the online registration for District 108, there is a, are you planning to homeschool your child? So I don't think, I just have to fill it
okay.
out online.
Just say yes or no.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
So that's what we already did.
that makes it
That's
easier
nice.
then.
It does make
So-
it much easier for parents.
Yes.
I know they're just assuming that there are going to be people who don't want their kids to come back, so.
Right.
Right,
Sure.
yeah. And so, yeah, this would be maybe on a more normal year. This year is
I
very
feel like all the
different.
rules got chucked right out the window.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
It is. So, you do have to, of course, teach in English. That is, you know, one of the things you have to do, and you have to do the core subjects. So that would be your reading, writing, arithmetic. They do ask you to do social studies, sciences. As for like PE, it isn't, they don't tell you you have to, but it is written on the website to have physical.
Some sort of
Yeah.
physical
So
activity.
I don't know how they would really, if you'd have someone come to your house, I don't know how they would prove whether or not you're doing that, but.
Well, and again,
you
not
know.
something to stress out about.
Yeah, not
Send your
at
kid
all.
outside with a ball, or
Yes.
catch with a
Right,
bike for
exactly.
for a walk around the block. Just-
Yeah, I think
I-
a lot of it is to make sure the kids aren't just sitting in their house, not
Sedentary all
Sure.
day.
going, yeah, exactly.
Not doing anything.
Yes. So, I'm trying to think what else. What questions does everyone have on laws? Maybe I'll do it that way.
They're perfect.
What
Yeah.
about children with special needs? Do you have to, like, do they have to have IEPs? Do they, to obtain services outside of?
I will speak on my own experience. We've got a son with multiple neurodiagnoses, and he receives services through Easter Seals right now. He has We actually looked into enrolling him in 108, and with the resources they had available, his services were going to be cut way back, and we did not want to do that. He's never had an IEP, and we've had no problems getting him in for his services and having our insurance pay for it. So I believe you can still have an IEP for them if there is something in it that would better serve your personal situation. But he's in, right now, OT and counseling, and we've done speech and PT in the past, and we haven't had any problems with any of them without an IEP or a 504.
And I have one that's doing speech through District 108, so their services are still available to you. And, you know,
Yeah, if you
we've
wanna
had a
go
great
that route,
experience
too.
with that. You know, nobody makes you feel like an outsider or anything like that. And again, with so many of you thinking about doing this for a year and going back, obviously, you want to have that great relationship with your school still. You're not, you know, looking to burn bridges or anything like that. And so I think, you know, having a great, there's nothing wrong with having a conversation with someone that either was your child's teacher in the past or the person who might have been assigned your kiddo this year, and just, you know, being honest. This works best for me this year to homeschool. We really want them to be able to come back next year, and that's why we're doing this. But to keep those you know, channels of conversation open so that everybody's on the same page. And again, I have kids that, like I said, we have one that's doing speech through 108. We are allowed to participate in sports at the junior high
I was
level.
gonna add that, too.
They're great about that. And so, again, you're not gonna get shunned because you're homeschoolers. Across the board, teachers want your kids to thrive, they want them to be well educated, and they want them to succeed. And I think everybody understands that this year that might look a little bit different. Somebody else had a question?
Yeah, me. Well, a little bit going back with, like, how do you know about the curriculum? What you choose when you cannot see it like in person? And they just show like a couple pictures online and that's about it.
If you decide to go the virtual route, a lot of them will have maybe like a 1-week free trial, or you can pay for the first month, and if you don't like it, you can get your money back. Anything virtual we always did a trial first. A couple of them we tried, my kids were like, this is the most horrible thing you've ever done to me. I cannot believe you even signed me up for this and thought it was gonna be a good idea. Like, that's why we did the trial, guys, you know? Other times, again, I don't know if they'll do it this year, some of the homeschool groups will get together and everybody will just bring their curriculum and let you kind of leaf through it and see what you like. Other than that, for us, if I'm unsure, I hop online and buy a used copy. Most of the used copies have not been written in. I can find them on Amazon or eBay for maybe $4 or $5 sometimes. And that way, if I get them in and we absolutely hate them, I mean, it still stings you wasted that money, but at least you're only out $4 or $5 rather than $200 that you spent on a few brand new books that your kids weren't gonna enjoy. So I would either definitely recommend the free trials on any virtual site you're thinking about. And a lot of times if they don't offer one, I've called before and been like, look, I don't know if this is for us. Can you offer me anything? And even if they don't always offer it on the site, sometimes if you call them and talk to them, they'll you know, either offer you a discount for the first month to see if you like it, or sometimes they've given us a free trial so we can decide. But
For the things that aren't online, that's where it's handy to know other homeschoolers. So if you would join our Facebook group would be one way to do it. You can, you know, get in there and post, ask questions about the curriculums. Someone in the group probably has used it, you know, and so they can give you some suggestions, tell you what they thought of it, send you somewhere to get more suggestions. You know, that's the handy thing with the Facebook group.
well, and I've had people say before too, oh, we're not using our books anymore. If you want to swing by, I'll leave them out on the porch for you. You can pick them up and borrow them for a few days.
Yeah.
So that way you can check them out too. And it's been strangers sometimes. I mean, it kind of seems like everybody sort of comes together, and it's not always people I've known that have done that for me. You kind of throw a question out there, and almost always you've got people that are willing to help you out or at least point you in the right direction.
For sure.
I have a question about that. So when you do like just the online version where there's no like hard materials, is that just something that you kind of like have access to for the year, or are you able to save that and use it again for younger kids that are coming up through the grades?
The ones we've used have been like a subscription time. We
Okay.
do a supplement writing program. We use Essentials in Writing, and we get the hard copy book, but then we also do the videos with the instructor. So your video subscription, it was good for 1 year and 1 year only. But then you've got the book that kind of walks you through it too. So you could probably reuse it for kiddos on down the line. The main curriculum that our older two use, we use Power Homeschool for them, and it's on the distance online learning list on that little sheet. It is a $25 a month subscription. You pay as long as you want, you can cancel whenever you want, but you've got access to 7 different classes. But like you said, there's no materials, so it's Paige and Colin get through, they take their notes down, but when you're done, you're done. You can print records, you can get all that good stuff, but there's no going back and reusing it.
I have questions. Is that okay? Well, another one, it was like, how do you know what are the required subjects for specific grades?
What the required
What the
subjects for
specific
It's like to know
grades.
like what math a second grader should be doing or what
Right.
that sort
Yeah,
of.
or what to teach them for a specific age?
A lot of the curriculum will be packaged by grade. And a lot of them will allow you to take a little, kind of a placement test, if you will, for lack of a better term, a little quiz that will kind of say, yes, you're ready for this level, or go ahead and move up to the next level to kind of give you an idea. Again, I think that's a great place to keep those channels of communication open with your teachers and just say, what should my kid know by the end of the year? What are your math goals? And
Most
here
of them.
I am throwing these poor teachers who are jumping through 1,000 hoops right now, right under the bus. Go ahead and give them a call. I would ask that you be a little patient. Maybe give them a little grace too.
Most of the hard copies too will say meets whatever state standards, meets Common Core standards, meets 3rd grade Common Core standards, or whatever route you decide to go. So when you're looking at things, when you scroll through the fine print, most of them will tell you what standards they're meeting, and then if your district is following that same set, you're gonna be good to go.
It's like this one, it says Math 3, so that's third grade. And so most of the homeschool curriculums will stick per year.
So every grade, I need to talk to that teacher and say, what's your subjects, and then go check
Well,
on the.
your subjects for every grade is always gonna be the same, your
Math
and language, but if you follow the grade level, if your child is at grade level, I think if you wanted to talk to your teacher to make sure your child is at grade level and then go from there, that would help you to know which grade to go into for the year.
Or send them a quick email and say, we're gonna be homeschooling this year. I wanna make sure my child stays on the right path to re-enter next year. What standards will you meet what standards should they be meeting by the end of your 3rd grade year? And they can tell you they need to do long division or addition of 3-digit numbers or whatever it may be, depending on what grade your child's in. And then you can just make sure whatever you get covers those subjects, and then your child will be good to go when they go back next year.
If you have any materials to check out, we'll head towards the
That
lobby.
help?
Thank you for using your Beacon
We had that
Phone.
question
That
answered.
answer?
Kinda.
I did remove my mask. When it comes to documentation, I know it said to keep it for 2 years, and I'm assuming the curriculum comes with tests and things like that I will obviously keep. But when you're teaching little ones, is it necessary to keep like a lesson plan of everything that you've done during the week of all your fine motor activities? Is that helpful or not?
You
really?
don't have to do
Okay.
that. I think the most thing that you're gonna need is, proving that they took the test.
Okay.
Just to show that there was progress done,
Okay.
that's gonna be the biggest thing, yeah.
And I crack myself up. I literally just drug out our records. I have a big tote, and I have a folder from every year that had, this was AJ's year, this was in each, whatever grade it is. And my oldest is in college and married and doesn't live with us, and I cannot for the life of me bring myself to throw away any of those records. And so it's so silly. But, I've kept things like she said, just tests and quizzes if they're older and they write a paper or a book report or do a special project. Those are the types of things that I sort of tuck away just in case somebody would knock on the door and say, what do you do all day?
Now, I do, at the beginning of the year, I always do write, when I'm planning out, I'll write all of the subjects that we did and the books that we used for that. And so I will keep that. And, so that's only gonna be, a page of just what books we used so that I can show in case anybody ever asked.
And the curriculum that you guys use, it keeps for you, right?
It keeps for you
It keeps
and
track for
for
you.
our older two, and then I just print it out and I 3-hole punch it and I stick it in a binder, and at the end of every school year, we've got a bookshelf down in the basement, and I slide my binder on there and we're good to go. These ladies are a lot more organized than I am.
It's not true.
My favorite way of documentation, like our youngest, shortest attention spans require short lessons. And so these are some of our favorite little books. And it's like one little page of stuff to do each day. And it's got a short little lesson and a couple little questions just to make sure they kind of absorbed a little bit about what you were talking about. And I stick this in a tote, and then that's my documentation for the year.
I have books like that, if that makes you feel better.
It saves me from having to print out a whole ton of stuff. It saves me from having 4,000 3-ring binders all over our house. So each kid has a little tote too, the younger ones mainly. And then when they're done with these books, at the end of the year, I just stick them in there. And some parents take these and you can make photocopies of the things if you want to reuse the books on down the line. But I found I would rather just spend a little bit extra each year and get a new one for each of our guys, and then it makes my documentation process so much easier.
And I feel like you hold that book up. Those are great books, and
These
you
are
can just get
wonderful.
those on Amazon, and there's daily science, daily geography. They're really,
Oh, we've got-
and like
we're
she
doing it.
said, if you have smaller kids.
And you
with
guys are welcome to look at these.
Smaller
anytime
attention
you want to.
spans.
What is it, highlight?
It's called, it's from the publisher Evan Moore, and they're daily practice workbooks. And like the geography one, it goes over maps, and then each day there's just a couple little questions to answer about whether it's map symbols or whatever it may be. And then again, if it's something they're interested in, I can go out and find more resources for them if they want to dig a little bit deeper or they want to focus on that more. We've come here a lot to get books that go along with the subject, or you can find easy little science experiments online that go along with it that are good for little hands. So yeah, it does great at opening up the topics and introducing them without diving so deep that I lose everybody's attention in the first 30 seconds. And a lot of them they can do together. Since they're only 2 years apart, a lot of times our little guy will step up and do it with Big Brother, and it's kind of fun to watch one teaching the other. We'll use that term loosely, but he feels he's really helping, so we give him the credit.
He is.
He is helping. But yeah, they've got tons of different subjects, and it makes it easier on me. I don't have to plan out topics. It's all right there for me, and then I can just dig deeper and find other resources if it's something we want to expand on.
So kind
Yes,
of
ma'am.
bouncing off of short attention spans, I
Yes.
have a soon-to-be 4-year-old, and so.
Short attention span.
I guess my primary reason for being here is to kind of set realistic expectations of how many minutes of, should I aim for someone in that
Yes.
age.
I will tell you, for us, we do, you're gonna think we're nuts, but we do no more than 5 or 10 minutes at a time, and then they get to take a break, whether it's a run around the house break, a go outside and ride your bike break, play with Play-Doh, whatever it may be. I do 5 or 10 minutes at a time, and that includes the time we spend talking about something and the time they spend doing their writing. Now my older kids, when they were 8, they could have handled it a lot longer, but they're different. Their brains work totally different than our 8-year-old does right now. So yeah, we do no more than 5 or 10 minutes at a time when they're younger like that. And other fun, like our kids love window markers. So instead of practicing writing their name on a piece of paper, we'll get the window markers out, and our mirrors and windows are covered with things. Or we'll get Play-Doh out, and they can make the shapes of the letters with the Play-Doh to practice fine motor skills, and you're getting your letter practice in. Shaving cream on a cookie sheet is awesome. It's a hot mess, so be prepared.
It's a mess, but they love it.
But I'll throw them at the bar in the kitchen with that, and they can write and erase and do all kinds of fun things with it. So.
We've done that one in the bathtub. That
We
makes
do-
it-
yeah, we do
That
bathtub
contains it a little bit
sometimes,
more,
too.
where you can write on the
And just
bathroom
rinse it
wall
down.
and rinse it down. That helps.
So yeah, there's tons of things you can do that are still learning and practicing those core skills in preschool without necessarily sitting down and trying to get them to focus on a workbook. Because you can for a little while, but I mean, you know,
I think, like,
it's not gonna last
10,
long.
15 minutes so far is.
Exactly,
Yeah.
is the max.
And I think it's that,
He was in preschool, and so like, I just kind of wanted to have that
Yes.
continuity, but
Well,
I just.
And we
you know,
read together a
reading
lot.
to them, yes.
Yes,
Just,
yeah.
okay, read.
All that good stuff. And we build things, we've always got blocks out.
Yeah.
If you ever stop by our house in the middle of the day, you're gonna think you walked into a war zone before we get it picked up in the evenings. But they've got stuff out all day long. So, yeah, there's all kinds of fun things that stick with that short time span to keep their attention, but you're still sneaking all kinds of learning in there for them.
To go back and clarify just about like the documentation, like
Yes.
the state of Illinois is not coming around knocking on homeschoolers' doors like saying, show us your materials. It's really just in
I'm
case
so
you
sad.
come
The
back.
first
I had
couple
to
years,
show
I spent
them.
so much time making sure my documentation was
Yes.
perfect and pretty and organized, and not a single person has
I
ever
have
asked me to
never
look at
had
it.
to show anything to anyone.
Okay,
It's
and like if-
absolutely something we all stress about, because,
Right.
I mean,
Just
it's
in
the
case.
truth.
Because
All
there's
it
some
takes-
crazy
all it takes
person
is one
reporting
person
you.
to
Yes.
say, I don't think they're doing anything.
They
The
don't
other-
go knocking on doors or, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure,
Yeah.
and like if they're re-entering District 108, District 108's not gonna say, okay, we need you to provide us with like materials they did the previous year.
No.
When I sat down with,
Right.
I sat down with the principal, and no, that was not something that they said they would require. They said they may test your kid a little bit, read me something,
Okay.
write me something, here's a little math test, there's, maybe what you should have done at the end of first grade or beginning of second grade, and just to kind of gauge where you are, so that no one said,
Show
I'm
me your
going to
notes.
need
Show me your
47
binder."
math tests. No.
I kind of wish they would sometimes, because you spend all this time, somebody needs to
Please,
look
can
at
I
it.
show you?
Yeah, somebody look at it and appreciate it like I do.
Kids, do they require to have a test, to take a test?
That's kind of up to you, if you want to test your kids.
Or even later, I mean, my kids are in pre-K right now. But I just
Okay.
wanna know in advance to see
Do
if,
you mean like state standards or
Like
what
the
test?
standardized testing type stuff?
well, yeah, state
Okay.
standards and something that makes me feel like I'm teaching them the right thing.
So
Right.
legally in Illinois, there's no testing required. I know some states.
At any grade?
Of any grade?
No. In some states there are, but not in Illinois. So there are places in Illinois and around here that will offer it to homeschoolers though. So if you want to, there will be somewhere you can.
And even
Yeah.
some of the curriculum will say, here's an end of the year test. Here's what we think your kid should know at the end of first grade. And you can give that to your kid and kind of assess it yourself and decide if you got through all of the material.
Well, and after the end of our first year, to convince myself that I hadn't totally let our children down with me being their main
just
source of
believe me?
education, I did not just believe you that first year, even though you ended up being totally correct. You can get online and order some of the state standardized testing. They've got CAT testing you can order online. I think Sutton Testing Center is where I ordered ours through. And it was more for peace of mind than I could care less if my kids are behind, in all honesty, because they're learning at their pace and they're growing and learning every year, and so we're fine with that. But I needed something in writing to tell me I was doing okay. And so I ordered one, they took it, they were off the charts in every area, and it just, like I said, more than anything, it gave me peace of mind. And we haven't done it since, just that 1 year. But you can order standardized tests online, and then we ordered the paper option, so they mailed the actual test to me with instructions on how to administer it. We took it, they send you mailing stuff to send it back in, we mailed it back in, and within like a week, we had emailed results with the same graphs and stuff that you see from when you guys get your results back from 108 testing probably, to show you where your kids fall in the standard in your state.
Okay, and homeschooling goes to high school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when they go to college, I guess college gives them a test to see how much they know, or?
So entry into the colleges, it's per college, but most anymore are pretty used to homeschoolers entering. So they will take, in Illinois especially, they know that the law is very lenient. So I think I have, yeah, here it is. The transcript, this transcript, if you fill this out on your computer and have this, this is accepted. So, so it would show, and you sign it, you are the teacher and the principal, and so you sign it, this is their transcript, and it is accepted at the colleges.
And they may take placement
They
tests
will take
there as
placement
well.
tests,
You know,
just
they-
like normal.
I think, I mean, I don't know,
All
I think
kids
every
would have
college
to,
does that to
yes.
see, you know,
Yeah.
if you can go ahead and be in calculus, or if you
Mhm.
need to start back at college placement test and a math placement
And
test.
math, yeah.
And
So pretty much until they go to college, that's the actual proving that they know something, right? I mean,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Well,
And-
you don't have to prove how
Yeah,
much they
and
know.
with those
With your
placement tests,
transcript.
every child has to take those, not
Yeah.
just homeschools.
Anybody getting in.
Everyone has to take those tests.
Well,
So-
they're not required. Are they, the placement says?
At the college, not by the state. So it would be whatever college they choose to go to, then they would take one at that college that they require for every child that enters that school.
Right, but the previous grades, I mean, it's not required.
Not required
Not
at all.
required, you just show the transcript that shows that they graduated.
that's basically
Yeah.
what a high school transcript from a public high school would look
It's
like.
the same thing.
And homeschooling really has become more prevalent, and so it is much more accepted, pretty much across the board.
Yeah.
It seems like now, it used to be, you know, you'd look up, what are the homeschool friendly colleges?
But anymore, everyone,
almost all of them.
Yeah, I mean, they really are. And our ICC here in East Peoria is incredibly homeschool friendly.
They post a little event on how
They
the
do.
homeschoolers
They-
can get involved with either
Yeah.
dual enrollment
I was gonna
or
say,
new
they offer the
enrollment.
dual enrollment to homeschoolers.
Yeah, so they're great, that's a great.
It's like their
for
junior year
older
of high
kids.
school, they could take some of their college classes at ICC, and a half a semester credit at ICC counts for a full credit on a high school transcript. So there's early graduation possibilities, or whatever your child has in mind when they get to that point.
And knocking out some of those
Knocking out some of those
college
gen ed
courses,
stuff
so,
before
yeah.
you get to the four-year university they want to attend, if they want to go that route.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
How do you differentiate during the day if you have multiple children close? Like, how would you break it up to work with each one at a different level when, say mine, they're fifth, sixth, seventh?
Well, that's stair steps.
Together.
But all three of them have IEPs in school.
And different levels of-
Currently, like my
yes.
seventh grader is at a second grade math level. So he's gonna be way back here, so even though he's up here in grade, he's down here in most
Absolutely.
areas. You know, the sixth grader, with his own problems, has his own IEP for other things, and then the youngest goes to speech.
Okay.
So how do you work with all three of them, or, you know, multiples?
For us, it took a little while to get into a routine. Our older two are pretty independent, so they're not my issue. I guess I shouldn't call my kids issues, but you know what I mean. I mean that in a kind, loving way.
The nicest way possible.
I mean that in the nicest way possible. Our younger two are kind of like yours. We're only 2 apart, and there are some extra needs in there. A lot of times it's doing things together. We'll all sit down together and kind of work on one concept, especially if you've got one that, I hate to use the word behind, because they're not really behind, you're just meeting them where they are in that moment. So I try to combine as much as I can. Otherwise, I will not lie, we sometimes use the iPad or the TV as a babysitter for a few minutes. It gives me 10 or 15 minutes of alone time and quiet time with one child. And we keep it short, so I kind of rotate through, and if I do 10 or 15 minute increments, and then everybody gets to take, we call them brain breaks at our house. And then the other ones get to do something fun and go play in another part of the house while I'm sitting in the kitchen working with our oldest on math or language or whatever it may be. So it's just kind of, are you home with them during the day, or are you outside the house too, trying to work?
Right now, I'm actually getting ready to go back
Go back to
to
work.
work again, so.
So you've got one more thing to throw into the mix
Right.
of balancing, the balancing act.
Right, and our school is not equipped for remote learning, so
Okay.
it just, we're in a different district in
Okay.
Norway, so, we're out in Manitoba.
For us, it was just so much trial and error, so much trial and error. And when we found something that worked, we just ran with it. And sometimes, some of my kids are morning people. Some of my kids do better doing something at 8 o'clock at night when they're sitting down and kind of worn out a little bit from the day. So it's just kind of finding when they're going to learn best with you so that you can maximize the time that you do have available, because it sounds like poor mom's going to be in short supply. Stretched a little bit.
What you need is a clone.
That's right.
I agree wholeheartedly with that, though, combining as much as you can, and then, working out just those little time slots to sit down with each one. And again, you don't have to do 45 minutes of math. You have that opportunity to really focus on one kid at a time, so it might not take as long
Might only
as
take you 10 or 15
it normally,
minutes to-
takes a teacher to, she's got 30 kids to take care of, or, something like that. And so that can look a little different as well. And we do a lot of, not a lot of, that sounds terrible, but we will do school in the evening. If it's a beautiful day outside these days that we've had, like we started school almost a month ago at our house, and when it's so nice out,
I don't want to sit inside
go
all day.
outside, play, have fun, and then we'll do school when it's dark and the mosquitoes are out, and that works as well. So sometimes it's a mind shift in us of, I don't have to sit at a desk and do school from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock.
To be a successful
That's not
homeschooler.
necessarily what it looks like. And if that's what you want it to look like, you can absolutely make it look like that as well. No, I'm just saying you can.
I think my best piece of advice, and I want to say it came from you maybe,
I
Corrie.
love it when you give me.
I know.
It was probably not true.
Don't try to recreate public school at home. You guys have to make it work with your schedules. You have to make it work with your kids' abilities and your abilities even. I mean, like Corrie said, I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses. I know what I'm good at and I run with that with my kids. I know what I need to pass off on someone else. So maybe dad helps them or grandma helps them, or we've got friends that are doing the same thing and you can do a little video chat together. When I'm working with one, when I say I use the iPad to babysit, like you could sit one on watching a science video while you're doing math with one. So you're covering science with one kid while you're doing math with another. You're getting two done at one time, but you're still getting that time to yourself to focus on whatever your child needs. And Corrie's right. I mean, we're done. Our younger ones are done with school in an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. And sometimes those 2 hours are spread out through the whole day. But the actual schooling time, we don't sit down for hours and hours at a time. Even my sophomore, I would say 3.5 to 4 hours a day, depending on what it is she's working on. If she's got a bigger project, sometimes a little bit longer. She would sit and read all day, so if you can't find her in school, I'm like, okay, 6 hours, what's going on? She's been sitting up in her room reading for a couple hours. But yeah, don't try to recreate what the school's doing at home, because like Corrie said, you're one-on-one. You're not worrying about 30 kids, you're worrying about your 1, 2, 3, 4, however many you've got at home. And it's so much easier and so much faster when you've got that one-on-one time.
Homeschooling, it becomes a lifestyle. It's, it becomes.
If you're in it for the long haul.
Yeah, if you're, I know a lot of you aren't in it for the long haul, but just to kind of get a feel for us, it just becomes who we are. And so, yeah, it's not unusual to, let the kids sleep in a little bit in the morning. And,
Yeah, we're not morning people anymore.
Things like that.
We used to be morning people, we are no longer morning people.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a big benefit. At our house, my husband works goofy hours, and so, my
Kids
kids
are up
get
till
to stay
midnight
up
to
to
see
see
Dad.
him off and spend as much time as a family unit, which is nice, and then maybe I let him sleep till 8. That's nice.
Pedro thinks
Oh, I
that's
mean, I have to wake them
child
up. They think she'll do it if I let them, but we try not to. You had your hand up.
Do you guys, how many days a week do you or does your family generally spend homeschooling? Because we talked,
Good
my
question.
schedule would allow for us to be homeschooling for 5 days every week. But I've read a lot of stuff that says 4 days, some people do 4, and you said, my kids are 4 and 5, so they're younger, they're only gonna do 2 hours at tops,
Short little bursts at a
a
time.
day. So, for you guys, what works best is how many days you guys do the 5 and then have your weekends, or?
I've done both ways. It depends on what we've signed up for extracurriculars that year, honestly. So there have been years where we do the 4 days because, say, on Fridays we had extra class we would do
Outside.
and so it would be easier because we knew once we'd leave to go to a class, we would have come home and finished school. So, so I would just schedule 4 days a week and that would be how we'd do it. So it's just what works for you too, yeah.
One more.
Go ahead.
Sorry, but,
No.
Yeah.
So my son will be kindergarten this year, and right now, we're just COVID homeschoolers. But if it works well, then we would probably carry on. But you had talked like the things to really focus on would be like reading, writing, math, since he would potentially be going back next year. But to also, according to like the laws, be teaching him those other things. Would you do that? I mean, like, I guess, I don't know, but would you do like one subject? I would, so to do, sorry, I'm trying to figure
You're
out.
fine.
That's
Take
okay.
your
It's
time.
hard to sometimes put into words
Like
when you think
that,
it.
like every day, probably to focus on that every day, but would it be acceptable, you think, like to maybe just do like the social studies, like one day throughout the week, or like?
1 or 2 days a week for social studies
That way,
is fine,
instead of
yeah.
like trying to get all of that information in him.
Yeah.
And that's, well, and at that age, for us, science sometimes looked like we'd maybe go out to Forest Park Nature Center and would hike that little, or walk, hike, whatever you want to call it, that little short 1 mile trail. And show me the different flowers that you find. How many different butterflies did we see? Did you see squirrels and deer? What kind of Illinois wildlife did you see? I mean, at 4 and 5, that was a fun science lesson for all of us. And it kind of got PE out of the way. It got science out of the way, and when we got home, maybe you could draw me a picture of something that you saw there. You did a little bit of art that day. You can really do some fun things, especially when they're little like that. It's my all-time favorite age, to knock out multiple subjects at once and still everybody having a good time.
Yeah, we would do
Bob
lots of
included.
nature walks at McNaught
Yes.
Park, yeah.
And creek
Yeah.
walking.
Yeah, yeah.
And kindergarten, honestly, is my favorite. It's such a fun year to really, to get to see them learn to read. And when that light bulb goes off and they're like, oh, I did it. It's such a good feeling. And I have a kindergartner this year, and Charlotte Mason is, and Montessori is kind of that student-led nature, outside type of thing. And again, I know I said I'm type A and I like to organize, and all of that is true, but I can relax sometimes. 2 days ago, my kindergartner asked about a hummingbird for some reason. I have no idea why. And there we went, we just went with that, and we looked up hummingbird videos, and the Ranger Rick came and had a hummingbird on the front of it. I was like, no way. Perfect. And so then we read about hummingbirds, and just to, she couldn't wait to tell her big sister, guess what I learned? Hummingbirds can fly backward. She was amazed. So that's just such a fun little age to kind of let them lead and learn about the things that they like while teaching them the things that they need to know, if that makes sense.
And making learning fun, like that's so big for kids. Like, you don't want them to not love to learn. And I think this will be a good year for that, I think, too, if
So many parents stepping in.
yeah, just let them enjoy learning.
Well, and I will also say, don't get hung up on yourself if things don't come when the state standards say your kids should be doing things. I've got a very intelligent 6-year-old who can go out in the workshop with my husband, and he will take anything apart and he'll put anything back together, and he'll go help mow the grass, and he'll do all these things. If you ask him to sit down and write his name, he's going to look at you like you're ridiculous, and he'll reluctantly do it. But it's messy. He's struggling. He's improving, so I know he's learning it and picking up, but he's struggling with his letters. He's struggling with his numbers a little bit. So by the state standards, he's behind. But I see him growing. I see him changing. I see him learning. I know we're doing something right and that he will get there. It's just in his own time. And it took me a while to be able to set back. I'm like, oh my gosh, I failed him. My kid can't read, and my neighbor's kid's reading, and he's only 4. And that's just that's not how my youngest operates. He's very hands-on. He's totally going to do something in engineering one day, I believe, because that's his passion, at least right now. But when it comes to sitting down and doing things, it's a struggle for us someday. I've had to get really creative some days and find ways to keep his attention without letting him know we're learning, but still sneaking learning in.
Right, don't tell them.
Don't tell him. But like I said, he is improving and he is getting there. So you're still doing something right, even if they're not exactly lining up with what the state says your kid should be doing at that age.
And there will be bumps. I mean, that's just life. You know, life throws curveballs at you all the time, COVID-19, things that you can't really prepare for. So somebody said to me once, patience is a learned behavior. And so you're gonna set the tone in your house. And I just encourage you to really think about that. You know, when you're impatient or you're mad or you're frustrated, your kid probably is going to be as well. So it's a good lesson for us as well to, you know, roll with the punches. And, you know, I tell my kids all the time, we can do hard things. We don't give up just because it's hard. We're going to push through this and we're going to get through, and it's not going to be our favorite thing we did today, but
We'll get it done.
we're going to get there. And I just think that's important, really thinking about your focus, which is going to set the tone for their focus as well.
I was just gonna say, I just had a kindergartner, mine is done, she'll be in first grade now, but just because you see a list of state standards that says, this is what you should do at the end of kindergarten, doesn't mean that every kindergartner that goes through public school is going to be doing that at the end of the year. My daughter really struggles, like I think she might be dyslexic, I say that to her, but spending time with her, I was like, oh wow, you really learn much differently than the other kids. And so keep in mind that even though there's a list of standards, there's also a wide range of success that individual students are going to have. The packets that District 108 sent home last year, my kindergarten really struggled with because they were extremely repetitive and they touched heavily on reading and writing, which were two things she really struggled in. So we had lots of tears. I would not hesitate to reach out to teachers or principals because, like Corrie said, they want your kids to succeed. I've emailed both principals at different schools, and they've you know said no, don't feel like this has to be the only thing you do. So I do feel like there's a lot of flexibility there that I wouldn't be afraid to feel like, well, my kid can't count to 100 yet. She can only count to like 68, and that's fine. A district would still send her to first grade. So.
And again, I realize you've got littles, so they've not been in yet, but for you that have kids in school, you know, yes, there's those written standards, but your teachers know your kids as well and know that they, you know, the pace that they learn at or the way that they best learn, and you better believe they're celebrating those wins along the way when they come, be it at the right time or be it later, because the goal is just to get them there. It's not, you know, and I think teachers are good at that as well. And so yes, those are written, but not set in stone. How's that?
Yes, ma'am.
Me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. There's my hand like 6 times and then put it down.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm a big believer that kids learn at their own pace. And I think that's one of my biggest reasons for wanting to homeschool. You're gonna wonder why I'm here, because I have 7 kids and I homeschooled the first 6. And then
That's
I
wonderful.
did not have, well, we put our kids in public school in 2010. And I had a 2-year-old at the time, and she is now 6th grade, and she's been begging for 2 years to be homeschooled. So COVID-19 was just an excuse.
Might as well go for it, right?
But I just wanted to say, I homeschooled, okay, my oldest is 28, will be 29 in December. Too many kids.
I always have to go through the list when I'm
He
listening.
learned, he did not learn to read in kindergarten. He was 7 and a half, and it just suddenly the light bulb went on, and he went. I mean, he was refusing to learn to read. He would not, and it turns out he's dyslexic as well. But I suddenly went, "You read that sign? I know you did. You're driving down the road. You read that sign." "Oh, I didn't. I didn't."
Oh, he wouldn't even take credit for it?
Oh, no, he
Oh,
said,
funny.
because he thought I would stop reading to him.
That's
So I
funny.
we found out later, but I also have
Oh,
a
that's
9-year-old.
sweet.
I had a 9-year-old who was not reading yet. He learned to read in the summer when his younger brother was telling him about a story, chapter book, and he decided that not being able to read was not going to stop him from reading the book himself. And so kids will learn to read when they are ready
It
to
will
and
happen.
want to. I had one who, my second child was 5.5, 6, and she was learning, I was using a phonics program, you know, little tapes, cassette tapes, that tells you how old my kids are.
It worked.
So I was teaching her, and she was doing great with it, and she, I mean, after like, there were 5 little books with tapes that went like that, and after like the third one, she was like, I'm done with these, I'm doing real stuff. And then a few weeks later, I had a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old at the time, and I saw my 4-year-old on the couch with his 2-year-old brother, and he was reading a book to him, and I thought, oh, how cute, he has that book memorized. And then I realized he had read a word wrong and corrected himself. He was reading it at age 4, taught himself. By, I think, listening to the tapes while I was teaching.
You just take credit for that, Mom, right?
Your child doesn't have to learn at the grade level
Correct.
that they are at.
I totally agree. And I love what you said about he didn't want you to stop reading to him. That's something I'm a huge fan of.
That is
Read
the good thing.
aloud.
I told my daughter's teachers, and when my others started public school, I told the teachers, if you tell my child they have to read for X number of minutes, if that's the homework that comes home, sorry, it is not going to happen. Because I will read to them for hours, and we will read together, and I will never make them sit down and read. And every single one of my kids, all 7 of them, including the one who's there for homeschool, will read until they have to take their books away. You know.
Right. So something in there worked, something went well.
Even my dyslexic child loves to read.
That's
So
wonderful.
So it comes in time. It does.
So I'm
It
just
does.
saying, don't feel like if you don't get to the standard for that year,
That you failed,
Right.
because you
failed.
definitely haven't.
if your child has been learning and loving to learn, that's more important than
Right.
meeting a certain standard for that age.
Yes.
Every kid learns.
All right. I think.
So we've
Does
gone
anybody
way
have
over
any more
our time.
questions?
I'm
Yes.
so sorry.
When you put me in charge of this, you knew I was going to follow.
They might lock us
These
in.
two
We
know.
like to talk as well.
If you would be interested, and again, we're not
Yes, that's
sucking you
why I'm
in,
here.
we're not a cult, I swear. If you would like to be added to the Tazewell County Homeschool Facebook page, you can write your name on here. You never have to say a word in there. You never, nothing. No one's going to contact you and say, you signed up. You should do this, and never.
But we do have a lot of
It's
info
simply,
in there,
yes, it's
yes.
simply a place, it's a great place to ask questions, like Michelle, I think Michelle said, I think you said it too, if you want to see a curriculum, it's a great place to ask about that. People will post, hey, we're going to Wildlife Prairie Park today,
Who
does
wants to
anybody want to
join
meet
us?
us there? Outings, things like that. So again, if you would like to be added to that, please write your name down. Please don't think that that means anything other than, we're gonna add you to this Facebook page and leave you alone.
I will say too, if you haven't been on the library's website lately, in the coming months, they've got some really fun packets that they're putting together for kids to take home, and I registered for ours. They put everything together for you, there's directions in there, and you just register, come pick up your packet, and you can take it home. And they had, one was making a dog toy if you've got a pet, one was making a stress ball, just fun little things for probably any age, depending on what your kiddo's interested in. And it takes some of the planning off of you. I love any help that I can get. That I'm not an artsy person, I never have been. That is one place where we probably lack in our homeschool education. I have to pawn that off on someone else. But they've got awesome resources on the website too that are totally free for parents, and you just have to register and then come pick your stuff up on the date they let you know it's ready.
Real quick about
Yes.
keeping the records. For how long do you keep records?
I think you only have to for,
HSLDA recommends 2 years.
I've got mine from forever.
I want mine.
Or 20, yeah. But you only have to
My
for
kids
2
sophomore
years.
in college, I got them all.
And can you just take a bunch of pictures and keep that as records? And just, if somebody comes, just show them with a USB?
I don't know, I keep physical records.
I keep physical records. I don't know, pictures might.
You probably could for some of it. If it were me, I would hold on to any testing that you do. Little things, I don't know, did you say your kids were younger?
Yeah, they're on pre-K. They are 4,
Perfect.
but I mean, they know a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
We are bilingual, and and we do sign language, and
That's wonderful.
one of them knows how to read, and they do 300 and some pieces of puzzle, and the other one is kind of lazy. And
I feel that, though.
Isn't that funny how different your own kids can be? Like, you all came from the same place.
I think doing pictures of maybe like the artwork, or our youngest, I have him write his, like I keep a paper, I'll have him write his name and the date and little things like that each month, just to see how his writing is improving throughout the course of the year. Things like that, I would probably feel totally comfortable taking pictures of and just keeping those as records. But I think as they get older, having the hard copies of just the major things, I would feel more comfortable with hard copies versus everything being virtual.
And for those thinking of doing this long-term, in high school, the record keeping is important.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a different game once you get to high school. Very doable. We've each got one through. We're each putting one
Getting
through.
one through.
So it's doable. It's just
It's
you know,
different.
that's
You gotta be a
where
little more strict
did
with
we
the
hand that out? Did they get one of those too? I feel like you did.
The high school requirements?
Oh, yes.
Or, yeah, the transcript.
So they're the high school requirement.
Is the requirements,
IHSA homeschool section.
no, I have,
I might have fibbed.
I
Sorry.
don't,
But it just
I don't
says,
think I had a file for that one.
I'm gonna do it real fast. It just tells you what's required of you. So you have to have 4 years of language arts. You know, it tells you how many years of math, how many sciences, what kinds of sciences, and those kinds of things. And that's just if your child is planning on going on to college, that's what you want to follow. And again, it's pretty laid
Yeah.
out pretty well.
And this is just straight from the ISB website, so if you go to isbe.org, yeah, then that would be where this came from. I just typed it up into a condensed because their PDF is like, what'd you say, 18 pages?
18 pages. I was like, there's got to be a shorter one.
Yeah, so let's condense it to one page because this is the minimum of what you need to know, so. But it is from the ISBE website.
So at the end, do you have to take a GED, or you actually get a diploma? How's that work?
I keep track of
Like,
transcripts.
say they don't go to college and say they want to student to have a job.
Right.
You can issue
Or
your own
trade
diploma
school.
and you're good to go.
My oldest child, one of his senior art projects was to design a diploma for us. And
They
so,
all make it to college, but like,
and again, honestly, I planned
This-
for all of ours to
this
start at
mostly-
ICC, and
Yeah.
they're super homeschool friendly. And so it wasn't a super concern. Yeah, if I was sending my kid to Harvard, maybe I'd be a little more worried, but I'm not gonna, so. I mean, if they want to do that and they want to pay for it themselves, have at it, but
Yeah.
not my plan.
But yeah, no, you just keep track of transcripts, you can issue your own diploma, and they've graduated, in the eyes of the state of Illinois, they've graduated. In the
Yeah.
eyes of any, if they wanted to go into a trade program, or if they did any sort of continuing education,
That is
it's
acceptable.
the same as graduating
Yep.
from a public
Yep.
high school.
Yeah.
One of my kids actually chose to take the GED just so that's out there, you can.
You
Yes, you certainly
can,
can.
yeah, it's just not a
But you don't
requirement.
have to, yeah.
Yep.
About letting the school know that your kid will not be there, is that like every year or just a one-time thing?
One time.
One time.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this year, we signed them up for remote learning,
Mhm.
but then kindergarten, maybe I will not want them to go anymore, or maybe, and then probably never, I don't know.
Right.
Well,
Depends
and you
how it
can
works.
change your mind anytime. If you enroll your kids in kindergarten and 2 months into it, you decide it's not working for you, you'd rather keep them home, you can send your letter then. I mean, it doesn't have to be at the beginning of a school year or at the end of a school year. If you decide to keep your kiddos home, you can let the school know at any time that that's your plan and you're good to go.
But I don't have to, like, for example, like next year,
Mhm.
for kindergarten, do I need to send them a letter and let them know that?
If
my
they've
kid will
never
not
been
be there?
enrolled in the school district, you do not have to. Our oldest two, we pulled out of 108, so I did submit a letter for both of them. Our youngest two went to a private preschool just for fun, and they were never enrolled in District 108, and I never had to send any sort of a letter.
Yeah.
So unless they've been enrolled, you don't need to let the school district know. It's only if they've been an enrolled student and you're planning on pulling them out that you need to send your principal that letter.
So in my case, I do have to for kindergarten.
Have they been enrolled yet in 108?
Pre-K.
In pre-K, I probably, well, does that?
The school
I
wants to
probably
know.
still would.
I was told, because I have a daughter in preschool, and I'm thinking about keeping her home for kindergarten, and if she went to like the preschool family education center, those records go to whatever homeschool you would have, and they told me that if we were choosing to do that, I need to let them know, even though I haven't registered
Since
her.
it's in the same
It's a
district.
108 still,
Preschool,
right?
and those
Yeah.
teachers already
Okay.
said this child
Yeah.
is gonna be coming, so.
If it's the same district,
Yeah.
then you
Yeah.
would have to write that letter.
Well, I belong to the Peoria County, that Island of Blocks, I live in Glassford,
Okay.
Okay.
so.
Yeah, if the preschool you went to is part of your district, then I would, like she said, I would still go ahead and send that letter. The one our kids went to was just a little private preschool that was totally separate from the district. They did send home these questionnaire things, are you planning on enrolling in District 108? And I had to check yes or no and send it back, but I never had to do a letter for them since they weren't enrolled in the district. But if your preschool is part of it, I would definitely send